So today we are talking about a team that is seemingly proving everybody wrong right now. Really nobody thought they would be this good at this point in the season, except for, maybe Kings fans themselves. But the Los Angeles Kings have looked honestly awesome down the stretch here in the month of December. They have won 6 games in a row. They are 17-8-3 for 37 points. They are second in the Pacific Division, and they are 7th in the NHL right now. So, gotta say, it has been a very impressive run by the Los Angeles Kings down this stretch. They're beating teams that they're supposed to be beating. They're beating teams that might actually be better than them, as many people would argue. They picked up a win against Minnesota on this streak. They've been winning other games too. They beat the Islanders last night. And I think that overall this team has been very impressive and has risen up to the plate in terms of looking at, teams in the NHL. LA needed to get better, and they were one of the teams that, last year they lost in the first round. They went out, they got Darcy Kemper as their goalie. They obviously traded Dubois away. They brought in Tanner Jeannot. They made a couple other moves, and there were people who were like, yeah, I think this team probably misses the playoffs. There were actually a few people who really thought this team was going to miss the playoffs. I think I had them in. I think I had them either third or fourth in the Pacific Division. I might have had them out of the playoffs, but regardless, yeah, they're proving people wrong this year. They have a 3.07 goals for per game, which is ranked 14th in the NHL. They have a 2.54 goals against per game, which is ranked 3rd. So one of the biggest components and one of the biggest things that was criticized last year by the Kings was their goaltending, and was that their defensive play. They played that weird defensive system under Todd McLellan, and it seems like they are playing under a brand new system with Jim Hiller. And seemingly since then, it's been a little bit different. But now they seem to be scoring a lot more. They seem to be even better at defense with this style that they're playing as well. They have a 16.7 power play percentage, which is ranked 15th, and 27th. Their penalty kills ranked 15th, with a 80.4. So a 27th ranked penalty or power play and a 15th ranked penalty kill. So overall, special teams could be better, especially on the power play. The power plays has not been that great this season. Again, it's bottom 6 in the league, so obviously not ideal there, but I think for sure the Kings will be able to build on to that. There's a lot of time left in the season. You could go out and get somebody who could fit in on that power play, and I think that would be hugely beneficial for someone like the Kings. Get somebody who can score on the power play. That would be my number one thing right now if you're the LA Kings and trying to acquire for sure. They are 10-2-1 at home, which is pretty good, and they're actually 7-6-2 on the road. Now, that's not that bad, but for how they were last year on the road, they were absolutely incredible last season when they were on the road. This year, it's been a little bit up and down. Hasn't really been as consistent as it's been in previous years, which is surprising for me. It's surprising to see how they've been this year, and hopefully that will get better, but they obviously picked up a win on the road last night against the Islanders. So they are winning games, fortunately, but that was something that I noticed compared to last season. Now, when you look at the guys who are scoring for this team, one of the interesting things that is pointed out with LA is that the guys they picked up in the rebuild that they had from like 2019 to 2021, they really didn't, they're not really leading this team right now when it comes to scoring. It's Anze Kopitar, again, who is leading this team. He has 8 goals, 24 assists for 32 points this season. Again, you talk in terms of, we talk about Crosby, we talk about Ovechkin, and they still have it. Kopitar still has it, even all these years later. And he was a part of those Cup wins. He was a part of them winning the Stanley Cup in 2012 and 2014. And he's still here 10 years later, and he's still at a point-per-game pace playing like the Kopitar that we know. And I think it's actually really impressive with how he's played, considering the fact that the rest of this team, they've been good, but they've also been pretty slow, too, behind him as well. Adrian Kempe, 14 goals, 14 assists for 28 points. We know Kempe can score. We know he's a very good player. I would argue he's probably the second best player on this Kings roster. Some may argue the best, but he's had a good season too, scoring and passing the puck as well, which is something that he doesn't do particularly often. Alex Laferriere. Now, you notice how I said that a lot of the guys they got in the rebuild really weren't producing. Laferriere is the outlier for that. He's a little bit different. He has 12 goals, 9 assists for 21 points this season with the Kings. Last year he came in, he played all right, but he earned himself in the lineup, a spot in the lineup for an extended period of time at that point. And then this season he's really popped off. He has 12 goals down this stretch. I think that's really impressive. He has been awesome for LA for sure. Kevin Fiala, 10 goals, 8 assists, 18 points. He's also looked solid as well. Again, he has missed some time in there, has missed some games. I think you could expect a little bit more out of Fiala, but I think he's been all right so far, considering the fact that this team is, at the top of their division. Trevor Moore, still producing at a really good level. 6 goals, 12 assists, 18 points. Really rejuvenated his career in LA since he's come to the Kings, and I think this is another year where he's going to look really solid. He's already looked good down the stretch. Already he's picked up 6 goals. Warren Foegele. Since coming to LA, he was one of their ads. He was a guy that I criticized a little bit because I was like, really? Like that much money for somebody like him? I didn't really know if he was worth that much. But I guess when you go to the Cup Finals, you get a little bit of a Cup Final tax in there, even if he didn't win the freaking thing. But Foegele has 7 goals, 6 assists, 13 points. He's been a really good third-line grit player for this Kings team. You need guys like that for sure. They really lacked depth scoring in previous seasons, so I think that him coming in is a good add. And then you got Philip Danault. Danault has 2 goals, 11 assists, 13 points. Again, you could expect a little bit more out of Danault, but the rest of the team is playing solid, so I guess you can be happy with that, I guess. But again, there are some negatives on this team for sure. Danault, probably one of them, but there's a few guys who are still struggling who were a part of the, the rebuild that has come in. Quinton Byfield signed a contract in the offseason, and it looked like a really good deal at the time. So far this year, though, he only has 3 goals, 8 assists, 11 points. It's been a slow production year for somebody like Byfield. Alex Turcotte, doing better than previous years. At least he's playing in the NHL. 2 goals, 7 assists, 9 points. You take what you get from him, to be honest, because, again, he hasn't really been in the NHL that much in his career prior to this season. So I guess you take that. And then Tanner Jeannot, who was suspended for 3 games earlier on this year for that hit on Brock Besser. He has 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 points. He was an acquisition as well. They gave up picks for him. I was not a fan of that. I'm still not a fan of that. I think that you probably could be better off without him. To be honest, I don't really think he brings a lot to your lineup. And he's somebody who I could really see getting flipped at the trade deadline for somebody else who would be better benefited to this team, just because Jeannot is a much higher cap hit than it's worth that he's producing right now for sure. So those are the forwards. Your defenseman, Brandt Clarke, is really leading the race here. He has been honestly awesome for the LA Kings. Has been like in and out of the NHL the last couple of seasons. Hasn't played a ton, but this year he's really gotten the opportunity with Drew Doughty out of the lineup. He has 3 goals, 13 assists for 16 points this year with the Kings. I would argue he's been their number 1 defenseman. He's been absolutely awesome, and he was one of the guys who came in during the rebuild and has been very impressive for them, and this is just the beginning. I think this kid has a lot more in him. He is very talented. I think that he has a long way to go, though, before he reaches his potential, but that's a good thing. If he's already playing at this level, it's great to see. Vladislav Gavrikov, 2 goals, 9 assists, 11 points. That was a player I think they tried moving in the offseason. I think he's been all right so far this year. Joel Edmondson, 4 goals, 5 assists for 9 points. Was a guy that I was a little bit doubtful when he came into LA. He's been good so far, though, I would argue, at points for LA. At least he's putting up points. That's a big plus. And then Mikey Anderson as well. 4 goals, 5 assists, 9 points. Always liked Anderson. Always thought he was a good 2-way defenseman. And then also, I'd like to mention that Drew Doughty is still not in the lineup. After all of this, with them going off to this really good start, Drew Doughty is still not on this team and is still not playing for them. So that's pretty wild to think. You don't even have your number 1 defenseman, arguably, and this team's already playing well. And I think that it's given, with him being out, again, as I said, it gave Brandt Clarke a real opportunity to kind of take control of this blue line And it's good to see that he's finally, well, not really finally, we knew it was going to happen. It's good to see that he's actually taking advantage of that and playing well under this Kings roster. Now, the other thing that I wanted to look at was the goaltending, because the goaltending is always something that is a conversation in Los Angeles. The offseason, they acquired Darcy Kuemper. I believe they still had David Rittich last season, but that's their tandem right now. And David Rittich has played more games. I think he's looked better than his stats say. He is 10-6, a 2.45 goals against average, and a .891 save percentage. So I think those numbers aren't that bad. But I do have a stat here. The Kings are, I believe, the team, or they're bottom 3 in shots allowed. So they have allowed the least amount of shots of any team in the NHL, except I think for a few. I'm not 100% sure on that stat, but they are playing very well defensively, which is why maybe the save percentage of Rittich might be like kind of not that great, because he may not be facing a lot of shots comparatively speaking to other guys in the league. Darcy Kuemper, too, has played a little bit less games than him, but he has a 6-2-3 record with a 2.37 goals against average and a .910 save percentage. So he was the guy who came in, and I imagined him as a starter for the Kings, and I think he's actually looked pretty impressive for LA down the stretch, so you got to be happy with that for sure. Again, I think this team is really rolling on all cylinders. They're playing at the level that we know they can, and again, they're proving people wrong. Nobody, I don't think really anybody had this team top 3 in the Pacific. A few people may have had them third. I don't think anybody had them top 2 at all. I don't think anybody had them top 2, at least as of right now. And I don't think anybody had Calgary at number 3. So that's also a pretty wild thing. We talked about Calgary earlier on in the week. But overall, it's been a great stretch of games for the LA Kings. Hopefully it will continue, and hopefully it will continue into the playoffs as well. Let me know your thoughts down below in the Kings. Comment what I got right, what I got wrong. Who did I miss? What are your thoughts on LA this year? Is this going to continue? Will they hit a slump again come January? Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like the video down below. It really helps out the engagement on this channel. Please subscribe as well if you really like the video and you're new. We are like only like 10 subscribers away from 3,000, so it'd be great to hit that by like Friday. But regardless, that's it for me. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.